Okay, so I guess we'll get started with introductions. Chris.
Hi, I'm Crystal Lewis. I'm the president of the Palm Beach County Tenants Union.
Adam, I'm Adam Wasserman. I'm secretary of the Palm Beach Tenants Union, and we were both organizers at Stonybrook. Crystal as resident organizer, me as non-resident. So without further ado, so you want to give a brief rundown?
Our brief profile of Stony Brooks. We're located in Riviera Beach, a predominantly African American city. Um, we organize with 8 buildings, 216 units. It's a Section 8 project-based housing. HUD's pay per unit. Also, it's also income-based subsidized tied to the property. It was built in 1971.
Yeah, you don't have to go off it. This is just general guidelines.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, my bad. I was just reading all of the guidelines. And so
Give a breakdown of just the conditions. Okay.
we've organized this property for, I think, 2 years now. And our main issue with the property is that it is funded by HUD. And like I was saying, it is a predominantly African American area. But we were living in inhumane conditions. So throughout my 8 years of living on Stony Brook's property, I had to endure a lot of, horrible conditions. All of the kids had upper respiratory infections. They had to literally get on a nebulizer machine every day just to breathe and get all the mucus buildup out of their system. It was extremely harsh. They suffered from rashes, severe headaches, nosebleed. It was a lot. Also, we were living in stachybotrys mold, mildew, high levels of lead, sewage backup. It was a lot. Um, Throughout my 8 years and then the journey, it was horrible. I never seen nothing like it in my life. And after that, we just started organizing, and I came up on this group with Adam and Grant Black, and we decided to start a movement. And we came up with a plan. We put it in action, and after 2 years and a half of footwork, we had small victories, we had major losses, but throughout this journey, it was just a learning experience. So I feel the need for a um, national organizing to get this out throughout the entire state, because this is not only happening in Stony Brooks, it's happening worldwide right now. It's everywhere. We're now organizing other properties, but it's still HUD HUD properties, and it's the same thing that's taking place with the Stony Brooks property. So it's a continuously ongoing cycle, and I think for starters, we had to start from we had to start from the property that I was living on. And now that I see this is taking place throughout 50 states in every city, I think this is a call for unity, a call for help, and a call for just other organizers' opinions and tactics, and something we can learn from other groups. I want to give a shout out to the LA group, because they have been they have been going hard, you know, and I'm learning from their group as well.
Yeah, so some background, and Crystal could add some stuff to this, is that before the tenant union got to Stony Brook, well, we were just starting out, but before we got there, there had been a kind of like a few years where there were protests, kind of scattered protests, and they were mostly had direct involvement actually from the local city, like Mayor Thomas Masters in particular. Um, and so there was kind of at least a little bit of tradition of tenant resistance, but it was directly tied to the city and to NGOs and stuff. Um, but then in 2016, there was like a bunch of protests broke out, like Jacksonville properties owned by the same landlord, which is Global Ministries Foundation, this church landlord. And HUD stepped in, removes Global Ministries as owner of Stony Brook and all these other properties. And Marco Rubio kind of had like a direct hand in that and used that for his like 2016 election campaign. So it was a big kind of like local story in Florida and some cities in Florida. And so, and promised change on this property, and their promise of change was to do the exact same thing that's been done with the property like Stony Brook for years, which is to recycle one slumlord for another. In this case, this new slumlord was Millennia Housing. And actually there's a photo with Thomas Masters, Mayor Thomas Masters and Rubio. So here, one.
So when the Palm Beach County Tenants Union entered the property, I stood up for leadership, and we started to organize and protest. And absolutely, there was no progress. Also, with GMF still owning it and Millennium managing it, GMF was unreachable. Millennia, they didn't have no contact. We couldn't reach out to anybody for help. HUD was also unreachable. So around that time, a hurricane had broke out in September of 2017, and the roof blew off. It was,
I remember that, right?
yeah, it was horrible. Fires were starting to break out. Our units was flooding bad, and we had to be forced and evacuated out of Stony Brooks due to the conditions of the building. It wasn't sustainable. And in April 2018, the property manager, Mrs. Lee, she just charged us for everything that Hurricane Irma had destroyed. And we were charged for broken sprinkler heads, and if we didn't pay, she just slapped evictions on everybody's doors. And it was just everything that they were doing around that time was illegal.
Yeah. So this is actually when like a lot of like I first learned about Stony Brook is after Hurricane Irma. And also when the tenant union happened to form was around this time from all the various tenant landlord issues. I look at like hurricanes and like the tenant landlord issues as kind of like, you know, the same thing as what we're going through now with COVID, like tied to natural disasters and landlords using that crisis um, to displace tenants and so on. Yeah, so this is around the time we formed, heard about Stony Brook, and came to the property, did some canvassing, got 50 tenants turned out to the first meeting. And right off the bat, we didn't hide who we were, or like, I mean, in terms of like what we believe. So this was our like favorite poster to use. This is the landlord, Frank Sanito, tied to the Sanito, or belongs to the Sanito crime family, long like mob history of running the drug trade through Cleveland. So this was, and now he apparently he found Jesus, and now this is his mission to help tenants by being a slumlord. So, and running a housing scam just as his dad did, Thomas Anito. So, yeah, first meeting, we talked about all that stuff. Obviously didn't hire who we were. We had a really good tenant response in terms of like folks wanting to keep organizing. You know, we're pretty outraged. They had specific demands of class action suit and things they wanted to pursue, and we kept going from there. I kind of put this, the reason we're doing this in a campaign form too, just to say something real quick, is that I feel like this story can't be told except in a narrative manner. There's so much to it, and I don't know, to me you can't really grasp like the actual story just from like just points. We tried to put it in as much like summaries, points along the way, but I feel like it has to be told in the narrative because the story is still ongoing. It's not done, and just when you think it's done, it progresses. A new iteration comes along, and it's just, you know, never ending. So,
Guys, I'm sorry if I missed this. I didn't know if you were looking at the chat. Are we doing Q&A at the end, or is it okay if we ask questions in the middle?
oh, yeah, you can ask questions in the middle. Yeah, go ahead. If somebody wants to ask questions, I guess just mention so in the chat.
I was just hoping that, so my understanding is that Crystal was already a leader in the building before Palm Beach County came there. I was just wondering if Crystal could talk about how you came to occupy that role, like how you sort of took charge, or how you decided that you were gonna fight back.
Well,
family. Yeah.
It started off with me just not accepting the conditions, and me not accepting, you know, things done at their pace. I'm a mother of 5. So when I moved to Stonybrook, I moved there because I had no option and I had nowhere to go. And when I was moved into that unit, it was already condemned and I could see it. So it was either take this unit or be homeless. So I took the unit. I worked 4 years straight. And as I'm working, I wanted answers to when this place was going to get fixed up, when is renovation going to take place. You know, as a mother, you want answers in a timely manner for your babies, because my kids didn't start to get sick until I moved out there. And so after watching Marco Rubio and everybody come to the property and promise a renovation and exploiting, you know, us for fundings and whatever else goodies they came up on. Mind you, I waited 4 years, and then another 4 years is approaching. And so as soon as I get to my 7th year, I'm like, no, this is not it. It doesn't take that long to renovate a property. It doesn't take that long to fix these conditions we're living in. It doesn't even take that long to ship appliances out. So I immediately got fed up. I started to mobilize and organize throughout the community. I just wanted to start off. I started off with just holding random conversation with mothers to get, you know, their idea and what they wanted out of this. And a lot of mothers, they were fed up too. So we came together. We started off. It was like I started off with almost like 50 mothers. I started off hosting meetings inside of my apartment, and we just gathered around and we started to talk about, you know, the bizarre living conditions we were living in. And I'm like, okay, maybe, you know, we can start something with this, because I have 50 women on my side, and I have, you know, a lot of us have, you know, more than 2 or 3 kids. So I I have a large array of children with these families, and I'm like, we're all suffering the same, symptoms, and we're all living in the same horrible conditions. So I'm like, if I can get all of them to speak out and put pressure down on management, then hopefully they will take us serious, because I felt like a nuisance on that property. I felt like they literally didn't care about us, our kids, or our well-being. And I was disgusted by it. Then I came across the Palm Beach County Tenants Union. And so, this is my first time organizing. And I had no plan. I was preparing a plan and getting ready to take action, but in your group, you can kind of sense fear, and not everybody was okay with speaking out. A lot of people didn't even want to go to the media, and I'm like, if they don't do it, I'm gonna do it, because somebody has to do it. I just needed people behind me, and that's around the time I sort of got, I told you no lie, the Palm Beach County Tenants Union had visited the property, and I'm like, I think I'm coming on to something here. God is sending me some help, because the people I have with me is a little scared, to take action. And so, and that's how it all started, just by me just preparing a small table in my house and trying to come up with a plan, because this is HUD, and I know that we're not supposed to be treated like this, nor living in these type of conditions, especially when the government is involved.
I would love to ask a quick question, if that's okay as well, not to derail from your presentation too much. Yeah, when I hear about your story, I'm wondering, I know here in Philly, like, usually when people are in bad living conditions, the thing that people tell you to do is call licensing and inspections to like do an inspection, or to reach out to media or things like that. And it's a thing that a lot of tenants who are in really bad living conditions are afraid to do, because if that leads to their building then getting shut down, then they have nowhere to go. And that's always a worry when you're in that situation, is worrying about the building being just totally condemned. And I was wondering if that's something that, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but if that's something that you all struggled with at all, and if so, like how you dealt with that?
That was the main problem. You like nailed it right on the head. The conditions were so horrible. A lot of tenants didn't even want their face on their apartments, even when they, gave up photos of their living conditions. They didn't want their names on it. They didn't want their face on it. It was that bad.
I think the issue that you bring up is a good one, because it was kind of weird that when we came to the property, a lot of the tenants wanted Stonybrook shut down, in terms of like, because it's income-based subsidy, if the property is shut down, then what that would lead to next would be housing authorities stepping in with vouchers, which would give everybody the choice to use those vouchers to move elsewhere. And kind of everybody understood that Stonybrook was like this like temporary like homeless shelter that people were supposed to be in on the way to getting vouchers, but with the like voucher waiting list being like to like years from now, folks were kind of trapped here. So that led to an interesting dynamic where folks actually wanted the property condemned. And one of the challenges to that was like, well, kind of running a midway through here where I was going to get to like Millennia's rehab and stuff, because that was the thing. It's like Millennia wants to keep this property open to do a so-called rehabilitation. That's just going to be patchwork, and it probably won't happen for years. Or the tenants want the property shut down, which the city isn't going to do anyways because federal tax reasons, which I still don't quite understand, but all the federal tax stuff. But we proposed obviously the third way of that the tenants would be relocated temporarily while the property was being renovated through a community land trust under their collective supervision. And that was the kind of thing that we were pushing for a while as kind of an alternative. It's eventually the idea started catching on more and more, but that's kind of the dynamics of all of that with the condemned. So in the sense, condemning the property in the view of the tenants would have actually been a victory. So that's just how it is, I think, with the HUD income-based, project-based housing like this. It's just a different dynamic.
I have a quick question. So I don't know if y'all are looking at the chat, and you can sort of push this to later if this is something you're going to speak to later anyways, but it's a question for Crystal that's sort of a follow-up question to Rose's question, which is like, how did you support people to overcome those fears that you mentioned? And how did you like build up other leaders from among your neighbors who you'd spent all that time like building relationships with? Like, I would love to hear more about just kind of what that process was like. And if that's kind of later on in the presentation, you can ignore my question for now. But yeah, I just would really love to hear more about that.
Answer that now.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that. I can say that you got to get to understand people and who they are and where they come from. And honestly speaking, I knew that this was going to be an extremely tough situation for me. So my thing was to get to know everybody. Not only did I host meetings, but one-on-one talk with the women and see what it was more so I help you, you help me, and we all win. So I had to get to know each one of the tenants individually, and I came up with a plan. And I started to invest into what I was doing. So the whole time when I stopped paying rent and we all got on board, I started to invest the money that I said, you know what, instead of giving my money to these slumlords, we did a 7-day secure rent withhold form. And instead of paying them, what I did was for the women who were lacking help, and I decided to invest my funds throughout the community. So we started doing weekly get-togethers. I started, because food will bring you together. I started to have I started to invest my money in the campaign, figure out what the women were lacking on, help them with what they needed help with. So we kind of like paid light bills and stuff because it was extremely high.
Let them use your car.
I started to share all of my resources. I'm gonna tell you, it was so hard that I was like, if I wanted these group of women to come together and help me, I'm gonna have to implement some of my tools and share it with them. So I had a couple women that needed to get around, and I listed my car. I put my car up. So as long as you were in the group, I will help you. But you have to have ties with the group. I'm just not going to let you hold my car because all of the women, we all worked together. We came together. I also set up a station in my house because throughout the Black community, it's lack of resources, it's lack of tools. A lot of them wasn't, up onto how to, and it's no internet access. It was a lot of things that they needed that they didn't have. So I was saying to myself, if I'm going to be a leader, I'm going to take charge. I'm going to have to think like a leader. So all of this was just quick thinking, and I had to react fast to keep the women together. I also set up a station in my house so that they didn't have to. I tried to minimize the walking for all of the women. I built I had the union to help me build a office in my living room. I remodeled my whole living room. I took everything out, and my living room was an office space. So the kids, when they got out of school, I had created a bond with the children. They could come to my house, sign, it was like a little small library, but here is where they were able to do their homework. They was progressing in school. They were happy about just getting out of school and coming to my house and using the computer for fundamental skills and stuff. So I was just trying to supply what management was lacking, because we had a center, but there was no computers for the kids to use, and they were not allowed in this community center. So I had to do something for the children, like something recreational for them to do. And then the kids, they loved it so much, the mothers started to come. They were doing food stamp application, they were applying for jobs, and I just seen so much progress happening. And I kind of built the bond with every single one of the tenants. And to me, I made their life less stressful and more helpful. So they said, oh, well, good. We stick with Crystal, we're going to get more done. So then I started to, the union, they raised funds for me, because once I started to win the property over, it was like a tug of war between me and management. And I was winning the people over. So management decided to go at me, vandalize all my belongings, and, you know, try to isolate me from the property. I didn't let it, I stayed focused, and I continued to put in my footwork. They raised $2,000 from my car being vandalized. They called DCF on me, security guards. They was pulling out guns. They were messing up everybody paperwork with certification, like recertifying. They was trespassing us, wrongfully trespassing us off the property for minor issues. I had a couple of the tenants that were bought out, and management seeing that I was winning over that property, so they started to invest into the tenants themselves, but they were investing in the tenants for the wrong reasons. They were paying them, getting them daycare, just to go against me. And so I was being harassed. They actually had hired a security company, and security company was the security. They were standing in front of my door, and they was making sure that I don't do, you know, no more meetings. So I was like being under brutally, I was being attacked bad. But did that stop me? No. I continue to organize. I continue to do the campaigns, and the money that I did raise for my car, I made sure that I even did a 4th of July campaign, and that brought out more people. And what made the people stick with me is because they seen that Crystal didn't give up yet. Crystal didn't stop. Crystal isn't scared. And Crystal is not only going, you know, hard for her family and her kids, but I did it for the women that stood by my side as well. So that's, yeah, it's trust, it's fairness, and honestly speaking, I just made sure that everything that I did, it wasn't about me. I didn't make this about me. I made this about the people, us in general. And here you can see she hired a couple people from the property, and they vandalized my car. They were spray painting my door. I think Adam, you remember when somebody took a bucket of crap and they put poop all around my building?
Yeah.
I thought it was a hex. I'm like, they took it to that point to smear my walls with a bunch of boo-boo. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I just hope they didn't do black magic.
Yeah. The retaliation was serious. Especially with security pulling like guns out on tenants. They actually pulled guns out on some like protesters that protest too a few times. But yeah, Crystal essentially provided everything that like Millennia was supposed to through HUD subsidies. Yeah, and
I was even, Mrs. Lee, they were all backed up on paperwork. They were doing so much illegal things to the point the women were confused. So by me having the knowledge I have, I was also helping the women, you know, fill out their paperwork and renew their leases and everything. Honestly speaking, my house was the second office. I had files of all of the mothers that was willing to work with me. I had a copy of everybody's lease, everybody's work order. I mean, I had a big responsibility and I had to keep track of paperwork. It was just so much. I'm like, this is my second job. When I leave from Publix, I come home and now I'm filing paperwork. It was a never ending story for me. And so the people kind of they were comfortable. So then they were dropping off everything to my door. It was a trust thing.
To go off what I just see with Maddie in the chat. Yeah, besides, I felt like the relationship and the stress was not only strong in confronting the hard fist, but also the open hand, in the sense of that pretty much literally everybody I could think of that was involved that wasn't the union tried to bribe Crystal and the tenant leaders in some way, shape, or form to stop organizing. I can't even like remember. I mean, it was like people that we like, this is, to me, this is an issue with coalition building, is like, is that they turn like people that we've actually tried to do a little bit of coalition building, and then we had people turn around and try to like offer Crystal a house to like stop like fighting.
I did want to co-op with the churches and other organizations around us, but I didn't see I didn't get the answers that I wanted. I wanted help. I didn't want to follow nobody's order, because I wanted to find my own way, due to the fact that Reverend Masters, he was already in charge of everything. And when the other people first started organizing the property, Reverend Masters ran those tenants in circles. And the city workers, I never even reached out to the city. I just knew at some point that they were following the story and the remote amount of footwork that I was putting in. And I started to come across a couple individuals that I wasn't too sure of. So when the city came out to Stonybrook, it was 3 city officials. It was 3 Black women. They came, they heard about the campaigns and everything, and they told me, they said, Crystal, the city want to offer you something. And I'm like, for what? They was like, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve this type of living. And based off what they were telling me, I just knew something wasn't right. So they offered me houses. Before Ronnie Felder became mayor, I reached out to him because he runs a church, nonprofit organization. What is it called? His church is called
Freedom Ministries. Is that it? No, that's not it. Something like that.
Oh man, I forgot. But I did reach out to all of the churches. I wanted help. I tried to get help with the kids for back to school events and everything. Ronnie Felder, he did help me with that one event, but he wanted to start a nonprofit organization. He wanted to give me funds, but I wasn't doing anything for the money. So I actually turned down that gig as well as the city, the 3 women from the city, moving me in a house across the street from Stonybrook. I don't even want to be in this area. You're not going to place me where you want to put me. And how I see it, if you can move me into a house across the street, that means you're going to shut down 216 units, and you're going to move the rest of the women with me, because like as I reiterate this again, I'm not doing this for me. This was for us all in general. So a lot of gigs that I turned down is because I was being bought out.
Yeah, so an interesting part of this whole thing is how a lot of the churches, you know, Riviera is a small city. So, you know, this is all like very like, you know, they're very close to this situation in terms of like this. It's not just retaliation from Millennia or GMF or whoever, it's retaliation from the city as well.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like the churches are like very close to Julie Botel, who's like the only white commissioner on the council. She represents Singer Island, which is, you know, the one, I guess you could say, rich area of Riviera Beach. But anyway, she's very pro Millennia and was all about their site plan and all this and that, and pretty much had a really strong grip on the churches. In terms, like, the churches were all in on our campaign, and the churches were really active at Stonybrook too. So yeah, that was an issue to confront, with the churches just being there left and right, caping for Millennia and offering bribes to tenants to stay quiet. And so, I mean, we were fighting on so many fronts. You know, it was a war of us against all.
Yeah.
Much.
Because doing business with the churches, I thought that they were going to come out there and they were going to embrace the people like I did and get to know them. That wasn't the case. They came, they did the event for me, and Ronnie Felder told me, he said, let me know, give up your research, everything that you got on this company, give it to me. And everything that you guys, your union worked hard on, just give me a file of everything. He also wanted the files out of my house that I put together for the people. And I'm like, I didn't bring you in to be in my business. I brought you in to help the people. And, you know, it's not like we were doing business together this whole time. This is someone I just started business with. Why do you want information of the wrong thing? And so later down the line, he got elected. He's now mayor. And I reached out to him a year before he became mayor. Now that he's mayor, he never visited that property. He's never done nothing for the people. He came out to get his vote, and that was it. So I'm glad that I was bold enough to tell him, no, this is not your information. Whatever information you want of this company, this corrupted company, you're going to have to do your researches yourself. But when he became mayor, I waited for 6 months for him to come out to Stonybrook and then do work with me, help me now. But that was not the case.
Yeah, Riviera Beach is an interesting situation. I mean, it's not the only place where we've uncovered this dynamic, not just in the city government itself, but in the broader city, where people kind of looked at Stonybrook as like this eyesore to be ashamed of, and they could kind of pathologize the tenants and look at it as like, I mean, even if conditions down the street are really not that much better, and look at it as just this, like, you know, this is the issue. Oh, it's because of the tenants. The tenants are connected to how bad the property is too. And a lot of the local media coverage we were getting, like, kind of reinforced that. There, Chris, I'll just step away for a second. So that was a real issue, and something we, besides the tenants, like, you know, organizing the tenants was one thing, but organizing broader community support was like truly difficult for that reason. Over time, we kind of got some community support, especially from like Botel's enemies. But we had to kind of approach it from a different way to get that. Like, when it became, I guess, an opportunity for folks to hop on, then they would hop on the cause. But yeah, that was definitely a big challenge. Hold on, let's see. I know we're totally off from this thing, but I'm just trying to go through slides that kind of reinforce the points we're trying to make here. I was talking about how Stonybrook is kind of like looked at as like an eyesore by the rest of the people of the city, and they could just kind of like look at it like, well, at least we don't have it as bad as Stonybrook does. Like those people are like,
Yeah, we're being overlooked.
I mean, but they just like look at the property as like this kind of like bad like mark on the image of Riviera Beach, and they want to promote the renewed image of Riviera Beach. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that plays in hand with what Riviera Beach is just trying to start to, where gentrification is starting to push into Riviera Beach, so that plays into that as well, of them trying to create this renewed image of the city.
Well, it's not fully renewed yet.
No, it's not. No, I mean, I'm just saying what they're trying to do here. Yeah, no, definitely not. I again completely.
All right, we got you up, Jack, but you guys still have 45 minutes, so if you want to just pick up the.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not checking the clock on time or anything. Yeah, there's so much here that maybe we shouldn't go just do broad brush strokes.
Yeah.
But let's see, transition. Yeah, we could start going to where the campaign picked up, since we kind of covered the relationship building phase. Yeah, so this whole campaign kind of kicked off on on Juneteenth, when we had this barbecue meeting to gather the tenants. And the part of this thing was that Millennia has their so-called tenant advocate. Pretty much sheepdog, CFIT's got that. They sent down to kind of pacify the tenants. Oh, I'm here to represent you in the meeting. Took down people's numbers, divide and conquer, bribe people. But at the same time, while he's doing this, he also informs the on-site manager, Miss Lee, of everybody who was at the meeting, and that everybody wanted her gone. Damn, what is that? Okay. So from there is when things kind of start to escalate, because we give Millennia in the meeting like, oh, you have this much time to give them a deadline. The tenants list their demands. You have this much time to fix things, this much. And instead, they just go complete retaliation, wreck Crystal's car. They start gaslighting. Oh, Miss Lee's going around pretending like she's being fired and she's not being fired.
They ignored the tenant's demand. We made a long list of everything that we wanted done in a timely manner. He led us on to think that they were going to do so, and not even shortly a week after, everybody started getting just retaliated on against. Everybody started to receive these messages, the letters that they were putting in everybody's door, that if you guys continue to organize with Crystal, you guys are going to get evicted. And that's when all of the extremely hostile behavior started. It kicked up, because I see that after the campaign, we were almost going to have that whole property under control. And they just straight up, they barged their way in, and they did everything they had to do to stop the group from expanding.
Yeah. I want to point out one interesting thing here. We did protests. We did July 4th, Stonybrook Stonybrook tenants declare independence. But one thing I want to point out here is that, and it kind of happened from Crystal's fundraiser for her car, is that we started getting attention online from not only other left groups, but from, I think Autonomous Tenants Union was then just early forming, and some other tenant unions that were around the country. And so that really helped push up kind of like the bigger campaign launch too, that kind of really took things up, you know, for broader solidarity. Not just we had the National Call-In Day to kind of set things off. That started media coverage, but that like interested the lawyer who came to the property, immediately signed up a bunch of the tenants. And it pushed the building official to, you know, pretty much come through and slap orange deemed uninhabitable for human occupancy or unfit for human occupancy on 50 doors. And Miss Lee did get fired shortly after they threw her under the bus. So these were like short, quick wins. I think the most important part was that from all that media and all that attention was that we started seeing tenants really break out on other Millennia properties, literally all within the month of July. These are all articles from other properties all coming out like right after this campaign blows up. And we started reaching out to a lot of them, or they reached out to us both ways, to start coordinating. And that's, you know, we try to get something going with like a nation, like Millennia tenants organized as a particular like union against Millennia.
I'm kind of glad that, I'm not going to say I'm glad what happened to my car, but it raised the funds for me to do the Juneteenth campaign. And I think that's what ignited the flames. And once that campaign, you know, got out there, we seen, like Adam just recently said, all of the Millennia properties was going up in flames. So I'm saying to myself, this could be a domino effect, because when we did our research, not only was Stonybrook going through that, but all 200 properties that he owns is going through the same exact thing. They're declining at a rapid rate. And I just feel like what we did, sound the alarm, and everybody just went to, everybody just started going after Millennia and listing their problems and what they were going through on their property. So I'm kind of glad we did that for Juneteenth.
Yeah.
It all started in that month.
Yeah, and I want to also, instead of going point by point for all these things, emphasize that we were all hit with a massive flurry of activity when this campaign broke out, to the point where it was kind of hard to keep our heads straight.
Yeah.
Because literally this stuff is happening day by day. I can't even give a day-by-day play out of how this is happening, because it's something like a new explosion each day or some new big development. And it was all just happening. So it was really important having that trust and solidarity to kind of like keep ourselves, the tenants, those who were non-resident organizers, everybody, to keep our heads straight and to be able to talk about these things and be like, well, we don't have to reply to this person. They can, all these people calling us, Marco Rubio's office, Masters, whatever, we don't have to reply to them. Because we were being hit up by everybody left and right. And
we were.
It was, I mean, again, we're all volunteers here, so we're like putting our lives, our work and everything on the side here as much as we possibly can, and it was a lot to handle.
And right after that, we started to get a lot of work done on the property. It wasn't the major work, but they started to comply with some of the demands. So we seen a lot of things that were getting done. Also, our lawyer, he came in, he helped us out. So we were in need of a lawyer around that time anyways, because I had everybody signing their rent withhold forms. And so right when Malik took it upon himself to step in and help us out around the campaign time, I had already had everything situated and established for him. So only thing I had to do was sign everyone up and just give him their files. So it was just that, it was that simple, it was easy.
Yeah. maybe this is just my own, well, no, this isn't just my own opinion, but like I've heard this from others, but that's like, he understood that he needed grassroots organizing for him to get his class suit going and get all the stuff he needed legally. I don't think he really reciprocated that though, as long as it was helping his case. But he would tell things like if the tenants like wanted to do a appliance barricade, and he told his representatives like, "Oh, I better not see your appliances out there." And so he kind of discouraged that. So that was like, an issue. I felt like that kind of restrained it and kind of started to move the ball more into the legal, into strictly the legal. But yeah, there's quite a few points here. What else? Make sure your cadre is tight.
Oh yeah, and another thing with organizing that I had to experience is you have to have a group of strong cadres. I needed compatible companionship, and I did have that for the most part. It was a lot. We did have some small victories, and we also had major losses. My main disappointment was that we lost our battle in the courthouse. We didn't get a chance to tell our story. The judge didn't want to hear our part. I felt like they were going against us as well as the lawyer, because of everything that we tried to get out there or tried to get the judge to understand. Is like they didn't want to hear us. I don't know if it was just discrimination at its finest and the name that that property holds and how people view the property and the people, but I got that feel of, why are you trying to fight for these Black people? We were always turned down. Every time we took a step forward, we always got knocked a step back. So it was hard breaking through this barrier of capitalism. And I realized that capitalism is just more than just slumlords. You have the courthouse that went against us. You have the city officials went against us. You have the elected officials that went against us. And after reaching out and wanted to get answers from Marco Rubio, he just straight up acted like he never came on this property and promised us anything. So it was like a lot of people's lines were dead. They didn't want it to reply back. They didn't have answers for anything. It was a lot going on. But need to say that a lot of rioting took place. After that, a lot of women got brought out. The property is still condemned today. After all of the footwork, they only have 2 buildings that's renovated right now, and they just moved the people to the next building. So it's only just 2 buildings that's renovated right now. It's not a major win. But what I would like to see, the whole property demolished and rebuilt from the ground on up, due to the fact that I invested 2.5 years of research. I realized that what we were living in was serious conditions. After me running down to the city hall every 2 Wednesdays just to get up there and voice my opinion on how we were living, we were overlooked. I had the tenants and I to build a site plan. And the site plan that we built and we put together, it was compatible for the tenants and I. We took it upon ourselves to go down to the courthouse and just express ourselves. Even though my lawyer told me not to do it, I still did it because, had we would have not kept this and the media's attention and kept this to the light, we wouldn't have had the support that we have now. A lot of people would have been blindsided to what we were really going through and how we were really living and being treated. And it's not just because of the slum boards and management, it's because our elected officials overlooked us, and they let us down in so many ways. So here you have, we went to the city hall. We wanted to present a site plan. We wanted to show them that if the tenants had total control over the property, how would we renovate it? We will organize it in such a tenant's manner where the tenants have a say-so on what they wanted done and how they wanted it built. Well, for the tenants and it's kind of a hassle when you got a predominantly Black community, all of us just bundled in together, and we don't have our own space. So what we did was we took the stairs, we cut the stairs off, too much hanging out, too much, I just didn't, I got tired of, the tenants babysitting the stairs. And I got tired of the trash on the property. So I tried to extract the stairs from the building to make it a way that each building, instead of having, it's like, what it is, 6 units? What it is, 6 or 5 in each building? It was 6. It was 6 units, 6 at the bottom, 6 at the top. It was like 12 units in each building. Well, I wanted to divide it and cut it down to 6, where they can be affordable townhomes, where you can have upstairs and a downstairs, due to the fact that it was, big families out there. And as you can see, the kids needed their own space. And Stonybrook doesn't have that much room for big families, like families of 5, 6, and 7. Everything is so caged in, so everybody was always outside. What I wanted to do was clear up the area where, and people were mainly outside due to the fact that we couldn't breathe in our units all day. As you can see, we had the tenants right after we took the courthouse, right when we got up there and we protested at the courthouse, I knew at that point we were finna be on the door, because of so much that, so much was going on. And honestly speaking, right after the courthouse stunt, we were evicted. We were thrown out on our faces. And I had a feeling that that was going to take place, because they tried to bargain with me so many times and I didn't do it. So it caused me 3 other mothers to get evicted. We were supposed to get evicted December the 16th, 2019. Honestly speaking, because of the tenants union help and because of the barricade and because of them just setting up the booby traps in our apartment so that management couldn't come in, that there had management, PBSO, all of them, they were scared. The police didn't know what to expect. They didn't want to get caught up into the wildfire. So they waited a whole entire month to evict us. And so we actually got evicted January the 16th. They raided our apartments. It was a massacre. I swear to you, I never had this feeling in my heart. I never had so much fear in my heart until that day that it was 20 sheriffs. It was 5 at each door. They kicked in the 3 tenants' doors first, and I guess they saved the best for last. But when they came and kicked in my door, it was 7 in the morning. I was getting ready to get the kids ready for school, and the way they came in, management, she walked around with pride that day, and that was, what's her name again? It wasn't Lee this time. It was Amanda Delman. Yeah. And she walked around with pride. And what she said, this is the door that started this whole mess. I heard her. So I was trying to hurry up and get the kids ready for school, but I wasn't finna let them in my apartment willingly. They had to break down my door to get in my apartment. So they tore my whole door down. They used so much force to get in my house. My babies were screaming. My husband had to rush all the kids to the my closet in my room. I also had a 5-month-old son. Me and my husband I had just had my newborn, and the fear and just off of him reacting off of the police raiding my house. At that moment, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I honestly felt like everything that I did was my fault, and I was wrong for taking those steps. It was brutal. They smashed up they smashed up the computers. They totally destroyed my office space. They trashed everything. I mean, everything I worked. If you guys just honestly knew how it feel to lose everything that you worked hard for, I was lost of words, and my mind was in a million places. I was broken up like that door paddle that they knocked off. I was crushed. They cut me deep. I had to go and suffer. I went through PTSD for so long. I tried my hardest to hold up, and I really don't like to get deep into it because it takes me back down memory lane, and all I could do is cry because at that moment I was helpless, I was homeless, and I tried my hardest to get everybody on that property to stick with me because I knew what I was doing. I was only trying to make things better for the women and the kids. And I knew that if the whole property would have stood up, that they wouldn't have evicted every last one of us due to the fact that they still needed the funds. They needed that money. So if they would have evicted that whole property, that place would have got shut down. But instead, they made an example out of me. They made they made a tough example out of a leader to show the tenants and the man that this is what happens when you stand up.
Yeah.
And it sucks because I had to be homeless for 6 months. I was living out of a hotel with my babies. They kicked me out of Stonybrook and put me in Stonybrook's end of America. What I mean by Stonybrook's end of America, our city have resources, but they made my name so bad to when I went to that hotel, the hotel owner said, this is the girl that started all that trouble in Stony Brooks. I happened to walk in and check in and overheard them having a conversation about me. And so they made it hard for me to live in the hotel too. They put me in the back of the hotel. They put the 3 women together in the front of the hotel. They even isolated me away from my group in the hotel. Adopted family have ties with them too as well, because when they funded our hotel stay, they also had workers that worked at that hotel, lived in that hotel, and they watched me like a hawk. They treated me like I was a drug dealer trapping out of end of America. I also complained about the living conditions there because adopted family, you guys housing us, we're homeless. It shouldn't have been, we were stereotyped and discriminated on. Again, you move us out of one situation and put us in the same exact situation. It was a hard barrier for me. It was like I just felt like I was constantly getting knocked back. And I'm like, after me keeping this to the media's attention, and I needed help. I really needed help. I was getting harassed in the hotel. I had a worker that worked there and stayed there, and I was also going through so much. They had 4 guys in the hotel. They placed them inside the hotel, one door away from me. The guy, he closed the window, and they watched me every single day. I had 3 computers in my hotel, and that's what when the Palm Beach County Tenants Union, they raised they raised about how many computers?
Oh, I lost track. People just kept donating.
Well, they donated computers for mine being raided, and that was I really needed that around that time because I had no surveillance of my own. So I took 2 computers, I set them up in my hotel, and every time I left to take care of business, I recorded the activities that were going on in my hotel. Sad to say that the workers went inside. As I was watching, from my phone, they went inside, they took my chips. You're good. They took my chips out of my computer. They good. They took the site plan that I built with the tenants that got stolen from out of the laptop. The computers that I had recording my recording throughout the day in my hotels, they took the hard drive, they took everything. So I wasn't able to record anymore. I was at my lowest point. But what I can say is that they did raise donations for the families. Um, I made sure that all of the families was well kept, and I just tried my best to keep not only my family, but the other 3 families happy. And so with that came along support from Lady March, Lynn Hubbard, and others. So a lot of people started donating clothes. They literally trashed all of our belongings. They had a U-Haul, they had a moving company truck to come to Stony Brooks, snatch everything out of our house and throw it on the side of Stony Brooks.
Yeah.
They trashed everything we had, everything that we owned. It was a major trash pile on the side of Stony Brooks. Right by the rec center, if you look over, you'll see everything of ours, the 4 families, they dumped everything. So it kind of like crushed my spirit, and it blew my mind that I had to go through so much. And so with help from the other entities, we were able to put a down payment down on 2 tenants' apartments. They were able to move. Me and Miss Keisha was the last to move. I actually gave up all the funds to the tenants that were extremely weary and just ready to get out the hotel. So I made it my business to be the last one to be moved. So I waited for everybody to get settled in. There were no more funds left, so I had to do random meetings with adopted family, and I finally got the help that I needed from adopted family, and they helped house me and also help put something towards my rent. And the tenants union gave up the last $1,400 that was raised for me to have a down payment to put on, because due to the fact that my husband and I had the eviction on our name, nobody wanted to help us or just sign us a lease. It was just so much. All of the landlords that I had came across with just, getting my story out. They already knew about the story, but they still didn't want to help. So it was a long journey for me. We're finally situated, all 4 mothers. Need to say we're finally back in our right state of mind. Kids are extremely healthy. No more signs of complications, upper respiratory infection, nosebleed, or just major headaches. We're all focused right now. And I can say that we're now back on track for round 2. So with that being said, it's okay I'm okay with failing, because at least I tried and I failed. And now I know that this second time around, I already know what to do and what not to do. So this time we're going to go hard. We're going to reach out to comrades all across to make sure that just that help and the resources that the tenants union brought in, it helped us in so many ways. So I just want to continue the footwork, because this is not over. They're not going to get away with this that easy. And like Adam Wasserman said, the story, it isn't over. People want to know the ending. People want to know the finishing of the Stonybrook story. And so this is why this movement is a major, major movement for me. I'm just honored to have, you know, you guys on our team to hear us out, to help us and redirect our path and order our footsteps and make sure that we're doing everything properly. Make sure that whatever I'm lacking, I can get it throughout other organizers. Because remember, this is my first time. I'm not advanced at it. I'm not. I went through tough experiences and tough times, and I held up pretty good. But this is where I'm going to need more information. I need to be informed on a lot of things and ways around, you know, what I've done so far.
Hey, Rose, what's our timing like? Because might want to open up to questions again.
Yeah, you guys have 15, I mean, the next session starts at 2, so these are supposed to end at 1:40, or sorry, I'm in Pacific time. So you have between 15 more minutes and a half hour, depending on whether people want to break before the next thing.
Okay, we can open up to questions then. Yeah.
Well, that's just one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard in my life. Like, I mean, just the, I mean, yeah. I guess, you know, Crystal, you must have heard people say to you a million times, like, you're the strongest person I've ever heard of, but like, just to hear the unbelievable shit that they have done, and like that you guys are on the other side of this. And I just know, you know, so many, when people are up against forces this vicious and like this horrific, it's just so easy to stop fighting. And it's just so amazing to hear you say that you're like gearing up for round 2, and you're like, so I mean, it's making me think about like the relationships that you guys must have. Like, you guys have such deep trust that you're like able to organize together over such a long period. But anyway, I guess can you like talk about how your emotional strength or something, like how do you maintain that? Sorry, I'm not sure if you guys are talking, but you're muted.
Our bad, sorry.
Sorry about that. Oh, let me go back. Well, my strength came from when I was 8 years old. A lot of people don't understand my story. I was 8 years old taking care of my grandmother. I went to the store to get food. It wasn't no food or drinks in the house, and I was hit by a car. So I lost, you know, I lost a third of my face, which is I lost my right eye, my nose, and my top lip. So I guess just living through life at the age of 8 all the way now until I'm now 31. This strength came from my grandmother. And so basically my Nana taught me, if I live my life thinking about what other people think of me, I would die faster. If I live my life doing what I want to do, who knows, I might break this curse in our family. My grandmother told me that before she died. And so basically my strength just comes from love. I never had love and support throughout my family. So I started my own family, me and my husband, and now we have our 5 children. But to have someone, and I can understand why a lot of the women were weary on the property. They were single mothers of so many children, and me, I had that support. I had my husband to back me up. I had my husband to say it's going to be okay. I also had my husband in my ear to tell me keep pushing, because no matter who was against me, my husband was amazed by the work that I was doing. He was so happy. He's now ready to join the tenants union himself. And so it just, it comes from the love and support. You know, when you get shown so much love, and as a married woman, me and my husband got married in Stony Brooks. We were married in Stony Brooks for 4 years. And once I got that kind of love and compassion, I distributed it out throughout my community. And I've seen the good and the bad of it. People will take advantage of you, and some people will get with you and they will help you. They can be an asset or a liability. But through it all, I just keep faith. I keep God first. And I also know that good things come to those that wait, be patient, but you also have to put in the footwork. I'm also amazed by the work I've done. You know, people told me all these years, you can't do this, you can't work at, a fast food restaurant, you can't do none of this. But I said to myself, that's because I'm a superior being and I know what I can do. If I have one eye, I have 5 kids. If I could organize a family of 7 and each one of my babies listen and look up to me, the same strategies that I put in my household, I put it out in the streets. And it's just the love, it's the support, and that's everything to me. Nothing really matters at all, long as we come together.
Yeah, I have to just add to that. When I first met Crystal, one of the first things she said to me when we were talking about organizing the property is that, if she had to die to get justice on this property, then that's just what has to happen. So not quite in those words, but like that, but it was that kind of like commitment and dedication from her and from, others around her, to like that kind of pushed us as non-residents to kind of like, it was that pulled us in to like really go like, throw all we could into organizing, to helping organize and, push this campaign. So yeah, I have to say it played like, that definitely was our encouragement to keep going all along, and why the campaign didn't die out over 2 years, and why it still hasn't died out, and why Crystal's organizing at other properties and going around to other tenants to encourage them, and just, yeah, it's,
I never, sorry, Adam, I never did it for publicity. I never did it for, I never did it for the wrong reasons. Throughout this whole journey, my intentions has been pure, good, and great, and for the better of my people. And it's different when you have so much love and compassion in the home. You start to, your third eye start to kick in, and you start to see things that other people couldn't see. So with that being said, knowing the conditions you're living in, who's gonna just sit here and die? I'd rather fight, and die for the sake of my respect than to just willingly sit here and let them exploit us for top dollars and then just say, oh, we're nothing. They don't deserve it. If that's the case, shut the place down. But don't make money off the backs of us and just act like we're the worst people in the whole entire world, when you got to look at the bigger picture here. The government makes these rules. And honestly speaking, you got people of color going to jail for the smallest things. And then you have this whole system that's corrupted. Even with Botel, go back to that picture, Adam. I just want you guys to look at this picture. And it's sad to say that this lady have been promising these tenants renovation for over a decade now. And you could see she knows how to.
Okay.
5 years. 5 to 10 years, but that's how long she's been on the That's how long she's been in the business. And to see her up here exploiting the kids like she's the reason that renovation took place, that also crushes my heart. That crushes my heart because you can see at this bottom right picture, this family with Mamie and her kids, I helped funded them. I did everything in my power to make sure that they were straight when they were overlooked. You can see the guy in the top left, the left corner, that's Kearney. He have no kids. They gave him an apartment because he just kept them informed on everything that I was doing. He was able to get the inside scoop on a lot of meetings. He took back so much information to Botel right here. That property is for single women with children. How did this guy end up with an apartment with no kids?
Yeah, I wanna add one thing here that Crystal alluded to is the carceral aspects of this, and the fact that Stonybrook is called toxic prison housing is that played obviously a massive role throughout. Is, you know, when we first demanded that Millennia with their promised rehab put like a moratorium on evictions if they're actually going to renovate the property, they're like, well, the tenants have drugs and guns, and that was again about pathologizing the property. And that was a general view of the city, so from people in the city, that the idea that this is a property inhabited by criminals is pretty much you know, really widely, and that's what keeps the condition, has kept the conditions from getting better no matter how much work the tenants have demanded is that. So, you know, there's I mean, you see elements of it like with security guards pulling guns, but like I feel like every time I've been in there, first time I went in there, Riviera Beach PD, you know, pulls up and just walks out like holding a gun towards, you know, an unarmed guy, and then realizes it's the wrong guy, holsters the weapon and walks away. But yeah, that was just common occurrence seeing on the property, is that this place was just a place to imprison people.
Yeah, they kept security in check. Right when, you know, I started organizing, they made sure security was on the ground 24 hours, 7 days, 8 weeks. That wasn't to keep the bad people out. That was to keep us inside. They literally walked around every day. They even gave us a time to be in our units, like this is some kind of prison. It's time to go in, everybody inside. And I'm like, no, no. They started to make up their own rules. They imprisoned us. It was horrible. And I'm like, security is not here to secure the community and make sure that the residents inside of the community is safe. They're here to keep us in prison. They're here to keep us in our units. And every time, you know, I started to take action, you have the management team on the grounds Saturday and Sunday watching us while we're doing the meetings. So it was just to keep an eye out on us and to keep us quiet. They didn't like the amount of noise that we were making on that property. But it was tough. It was extremely tough. I just feel like we have one life to live, and I don't know where we're going to go after this, but I'm going to live the way I want to live. I want people to live the way that they want to live. I want everybody around to be comfortable, to be and sustain, you know, housing, something suitable for the babies, for the elderly, for everybody in general. And this isn't the way we're supposed to be treated.
Yeah. Should we open it up to, we're running short on time, to one last question here?
I just want to say something real quick. I live in the county to the south of these guys, and I've gotten to know Adam a little bit and becoming friends with him, and I've met Crystal, and they're both of them two of the most amazing people I've ever known. I look forward to them helping me try to form a tenants union in Broward County, and hopefully I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. Call me later, Adam. But one thing, I don't know if it was mentioned anywhere, the bigger context in which they're doing this stuff is like down the road from multi-billionaires. Mar-a-Lago is like a stone's throw from where this fight has been going on. And, you know, I can't help but think that that has to be a little bit of inspiration to you guys to just, you know, keep going when you have these motherfuckers literally in your own backyard. These people who would just, you know, roll right over you if they could, and you just keep on going. And I know you're going to keep on going. And that inspires the hell out of me.
Yeah, to add to what Jeff said, in Palm Beach Island, I mean, not only do you see the vast contrast of Stonybrook, which is 5 minutes away from Mar-a-Lago, which, you know, there's so much to the story, like a lot of those details, even though they're massive, get lost. But yeah, you got slumlords like Jeff Green, who I know some have fought with in like LA, you know, that owns slums all throughout West Palm Beach as well. I mean, Palm Beach Island's just, you know, Epstein and Trump land. So yeah, that was a big thing we played throughout the campaign was like, look, we're 5 minutes away from the largest concentration of, you know, billionaires, millionaires, whatever, in the US, and like you got these conditions, people have to live like this, but this is like warehouses for the poor, so people like don't have to see folks, you know, just, you know, contain them all into a moldy death trap and just let them deteriorate.
Also, we wanted to keep this to the media's attention and to the light, because after hearing several FBI investigations that was supposed to take place on Stony Brook's ground, hopefully, I doubt it if it'll take place. It's been in the air for a couple of years now, but did we see any progress?
I think Sunito, who's the owner of the property, I know we're past time here. Sunito, who's the owner of the property, is an FBI informant. I'm almost sure of it. Again, that ties into his family's background. And because there's all sorts of extra things going on here, like, you know, embezzlement and extortion and like ties with like Ukrainian billionaires and all Ukrainian oligarchs in Cleveland and extra stuff that you know, but that's neither here nor there. That doesn't really help with the organizing, but yeah, there has been some like FBI stuff, but, you know, whatever, hasn't led anywhere, obviously. It's okay. Rose said it's okay to go to the hour if you guys want to. Okay. All right, we can take other questions then.
Hey, I don't got any questions, but like I recently suffered a blow in my fight for housing in my apartment, and like I was kind of demotivated. I was feeling kind of shitty the past few days, and I just want to like just huge shout out to Crystal. Like, thank you for reminding me where I am. My fight isn't shit. Like, thank you so much for everything you've gone through. Honestly, now that I'm looking at my position on where I am in my fight right now, and I just thank you so much for reminding me it ain't half as bad as shit goes on for other people.
Thank you, Stan.
Hey, my name's Anthony. Yeah, I really want to echo just how like horrific it is the way that you and all the other tenants in that building have been and are being treated, and you know how incredibly inspiring all of the work and sacrifices that you and other tenants have put in, and all the dedication of the volunteers supporting in that building is. My question is that you mentioned that one of the difficulties in organizing early on was conflicts between tenants, essentially with some tenants blaming other, like, you know, quote unquote bad tenants for issues. And I'm wondering what the union was able to do in order to help those tenants who were angry at each other to unite behind the campaign.
That's you.
That's kind of tough because it was a lot of hostile. There was a lot of hostile tenants on that property that was going at each other like cats and dogs. But for the most part, I made it. I don't know how to put it, but it was a vibe that I started with us just coming together, all of us. I knocked door to door, asking everybody to pitch in so we can continue the barbecues and stuff. And I'm now actually pushing a second campaign, Know Thy Neighbor, because normally people come in and they're not from your area, and they put their guard up, and now it's like, oh, well, who is this? But I'm not from around here, so they just feel like they have to be hostile to be accepted. And I made it more of a family vibe. So my second campaign is Know Thy Neighbor. It's when you move in somewhere or an area that you're not from, don't go in with hate. Don't go in like you have to be. Don't be bossy, because a lot of Black communities, people come in feeling like they can take over and just bully people. And from that, I made sure that everybody got along. I was so strict on the tenants that thought that they were going to fight. I actually caught the police myself on all of them that started to just, pick fights with one another.
Well, I mean, besides that, though, like Crystal did kind of, what I saw is that Crystal kind of mediated a lot of the conflict on the property. I mean, not just her, but others with her too, but still, like, she was the key one. That, the point where Stonybrook, which is pretty known for frequent gun violence, that there was a long, like, pause, a lull in violence for a long time when the organizing was at its, like, peak. That, there wasn't really any shootings, no violence, and besides just mediating that conflict, yeah, what she said, creating a family vibe by what she was already talking about earlier with sharing her car, having her unit open to, like,
and just being a listening ear and a counselor.
How many people were lined up at your door, Elise?
I had at least like 15 to 20 tenants lined up at my door. I was also, negotiating with a lot of people, trying to get them to see that, we shouldn't be fighting amongst each other. All that energy that we're taking out to pull each other down and this hostile behavior, that's supposed to be going towards management. But people were so frustrated and upset, and it was becoming a large mess for me. But I was the number one counselor, the number one go-to person. It was a lot.
Sorry,
the whole time I did organize and mobilize Stonybrook, the crime rate went down.
Yeah.
Only time the police got called is when, things got out of hand. And I actually only made that call 3 times. And after that 3rd time, they were like, oh no, we're not going to play with Crystal. We're not going to start nothing.
Miss Kern's asking a question, and it's interesting because she's on a millennia property in Mississippi, Cleveland, Mississippi, not Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Cleveland, Mississippi, where so any advice for vetting lawyers to get involved in our tenant organizing here? I would say give them like more of a trial run before you really go all in, or at least ask if they were to engage in like some kind of class action suit, to ask how they felt about extra legal things or tenant direct action, and how that would work, if what they thought about tenants speaking to the media and this and that. Because a lot of lawyers just don't like their clients speaking to the media, or really speaking at all. So then that's like sometimes obviously direct conflict with what we do. But people always think they need lawyers, so sometimes it comes into conflict. So just like I would ask them some of those hard questions and then like maybe give them a trial run before going all in and like encouraging everyone to sign up with them.
I can say don't go with your first option.
Yeah.
My main focus, my main key is to do your research first.
Yeah.
You do your research, you weigh out your options, and you go with what suits you best. And you're gonna have to invest a lot of time into that. So
I would say we were blinded by Malik because we actually found him on Twitter. We found he was talking about how he like stepped in front of a family that was being detained by ICE and stopped them from getting detained. So he considers himself like the anti-establishment lawyer. So seemed like, but then again, when you actually got into working with him, it became like the Malik show, and like tenants pushed to the sideline, voices gagged, and like, yeah, turned into advocacy. So he may be at least militant rhetoric, but advocacy in practice. So you gotta find a lawyer that understands the difference between advocacy and grassroots organizing and and is okay with that. As for organizing in a rural context, I mean, I'd like to speak on that, but I've never organized in a rural context. But I could say that Riviera, while a city, is pretty small.
yeah.
So it did have some probably like, yeah. Hold on, I'm just reading this. But yeah, that's so it is pretty small, but yeah, that might be so there might be some similarities there where you have a city council that actually sees itself vested in the property or vested in a way of like, you know, suppressing any tenant uprisings. So automatically right off the bat, like kind of get that feel of what the city's relationship is to that part, because it's a small city, then the city definitely has some sort of relationship to a HUD subsidized property. So definitely get the feeling for what that is first, and who and all that kind of stuff.
Even if you guys don't have the money for lawyers, we do still have legal aid, right? Throughout or just in our
Yes.
area.
Well, you mean in other cities?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can try out with legal aid. I can honestly say legal aid got way further in the courthouse than our lawyer did.
Yeah, but they had a different suit, and they got far because theirs was a far more limited case. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is we also had we gotta wrap it up here in a second.
Okay.
But that's the thing is that you know, yeah, it's such a like thing with lawyers. If you're lucky enough to find somebody who's like willing to take a case like this outside of legal aid, I feel like there's always a catch. So definitely look to where those catches are and be like suspicious, or you know, besides that, they're getting into this for the good of their heart. Like, well, if they're just somebody who wants to be a one-man show, well, they obviously don't have the resources and capacity to possibly be a one-man show. And this isn't a one-man show anyways. This is the tenant show. So.
Any other questions?
She asked, can you clarify exactly what you mean by legal aid? We gotta wrap it up, right, Rose?
Sorry, because the structure discussion starts in a second.
Is there a legal thing later, or was that while this was going on?
There's one tomorrow about working with lawyers and legal organizations. Yeah.
Okay, so Ms. Kern, you might want to attend that. You'll probably get a lot more info than you could from us right here. All right. That's all.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for putting that together, guys.
Thanks, Grant.
Thank you all
so much. This was amazing.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for hearing and your good comments on here. They mean a lot. Right?
Yes. Oh my God, it's heartwarming. Everybody have different storms, and one thing I can tell you guys, we can learn from one another, but giving up is not an option. So as we continue to push forward, as we continue to unify, build together, help each other out on each end of whatever essentials we need help with, I'm pretty sure that the day is going to come where all of these slumlords is going to, if you, long story short, in every movie, the bad guy never wins, right? I'm just going to say this. They have their time of doing the bad stuff, but they always lose in the end. If we stay consistent, if we stay dedicated, if we continue to uplift one another, like Sam, keep pushing, keep going. Giving up is not an option for you. You're the alpha male here, okay? You're in charge. Take charge. Jeff, you're in charge. Take charge. And we're also always busy because we have things to do on our end. But just how you guys is here for me, if you're in my area and I can reach you, I can come to your meetings. I'll help you guys. We can help you start a union, Mr. Jeff. Call us. If you guys if you're serious about this,
I'll be at the potluck.
you're gonna be at the potluck. We can discuss that tomorrow at the potluck. We're gonna eat and share some advice.
All right.
All right, you guys.